What do you do? Welcome to another new episode of Locked On Bucks. On today's show, after starting this West Coast road trip 0-2, the Milwaukee Bucks get a very timely victory over the LA Clippers, winning 124-117, led by some incredible play from Giannis and Dame, aka Freak Time. The chemistry between the Bucks' two biggest stars is coming along. We're going to dive into that, plus this Bucks victory on today's episode of Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis. You can catch me weekly on the Technical File podcast and the Pack a Day podcast, as well as Cheesehead TV's Carry the G and MKE during the NFL season. Joining me is Frank Madden, longtime voice of the pod and the founder of BrewHoop.com. We appreciate you for tuning in and thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. Now, Frank, the Bucks road trip got off to a rough start, 0-2, blown out by the Warriors, lost a game against the Lakers that was pretty winnable in the bag for them, a bad loss in my opinion. And tonight today I should say, afternoon game, they looked to bounce back against the Kawhi and Paul George-less Clippers. Now, seeing the two of them were out, you think to yourself initially like, hey, this should be a game the Bucks should win. But again, that Lakers game, they just lost by one. There was no LeBron. So nothing is given and you had to come out, play good ball, take care of business. And this game between the Bucks and Clippers today was back and forth. 28 different lead changes, 12 ties. But the Bucks got the win at the end of the day in large part due to strong play from Giannis and Dame. It's been really cool and interesting watching how their chemistry has developed. And I feel like you saw it in the Lakers game a lot as well. But tonight you were able to see it and see the Bucks get a win out of those actions.
Yeah, I mean this was not the most impressive win by any stretch. I think the Bucks were like 6.5-point favorites or something like that. So hey, they covered, Camille. Yay, right? Bucks have been
Shout out to the betters.
I think the Bucks have been a pretty bad against the spread team all year, which kind of makes sense given sort of the expectations that we've talked about and the fact that they've kind of often played with their food and generally not taking care of business the way that a team of their talent level, you'd expect from. And that kind of was the case today. This was a game it was very important that they win. So as you said, it was a timely win, much more so than, an impressive win. I think there were some impressive performances, especially, you talk about Dame and what he did with some of his fourth quarter shot making, after Friday night's game, misses that, I don't want to say it a layup, but missed a shot inside the final minute, up one, and then not even able to get a shot off, gets blocked by Spencer Dinwiddie on the final possession. Not great, right? Like that's not what obviously you were looking for from Dame on Friday night against the Lakers, but to bounce back the way he did on Sunday against, as you said, a team in the Clippers that was playing their second time in like 19 hours or whatever it was. This was a game the Bucks should have won. They needed to win. And again, if you had dropped this game, to take a 3-game losing streak into Sacramento, which is not an easy place to play, I think we'd be feeling like, man, this is like, that prior West Coast road trip all over again, right? Where it just feels like the Bucks are just snake bit on these West Coast trips. So, Giannis looked like he was not his best in terms of just physically, like seemed like he couldn't get up over the rim. He didn't have any dunks. And yet what does he do? 34 points, 10 assists, played awesome defense, plus 19. I was saying on Twitter after the game, this to me is like, people say, oh, what is Giannis going to be like when, his athleticism isn't the like elite level that we're used to? Well, probably will look something like this. He got blocked a number of times at the basket, kind of looked a little bit like that Golden State game where it just didn't feel like he had his usual burst. But we saw him dropping hook shots in over Ivica Zubats at various points, hit some mid-rangers. And again, not the most efficient night from him. 12 of 24, only 50%. We're used to him shooting 60% every night, so we're a bit spoiled. But he was great. And then, Dame obviously the 16 points in the fourth quarter, and I think probably the most interesting thing is the two of them playing together the way they were. I think you dropped the stat that every basket that they scored in the fourth quarter was
Mhm.
either scored by or assisted by one of those two guys. And whether the Clippers were trapping Dame, 35 feet from the basket, or whatever they were doing, I think the Bucks and Giannis and Dame, they were making good decisions. And then at times it's just raw talent winning out, like that Dame handoff into that contested three that he hit, which kind of sealed it. Um, that's why you go after and give up everything you can for Dame Lillard, right? Because he's capable of making shots the way that he was today. So yeah, important to get this win. Now you got a chance to go into Sacramento and hopefully make it a 2-2 road trip after dropping the first two. But again, season is long.
Mhm.
I know there's some people talking about like, oh, should Giannis have even played today? They definitely needed him because they don't win this game without him. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the question with Giannis as well in that Warriors game, because like you mentioned, it just doesn't like the lift is there for Giannis. A lot of things that you normally would see him dunk have been layups and attempts like that. And I think back to an article I read earlier in the season, and it wasn't about Giannis in particular, but Marcus Johnson was featured in the article talking about NBA players and dunking. And as you get older, how you don't want to dunk as much and it's painful. I'm not saying that's where Giannis is, but one thing that article pointed out was the fact that as players get older and they realize like sometimes I'm going to be forced to dunk the ball in a situation because if I go up with a layup, it's going to get blocked. Like there are some times where you have to dunk, and seeing Giannis not be able to do that in some of these games, the last three really has been eye opening. And I loved your point about, hey, you ever wonder about what Giannis's game might look like when he's older? This could be a preview of it because I think a common misconception of Giannis's game in large part thanks to the guy we saw him playing against tonight in James Harden, calling him like run and dunk man. Like I wish I could just go run and dunk the ball all the time. But Giannis's game is not just running and dunking the ball. The way he's able to finish with finesse at different angles at the rim has been impressive. You've seen the mid-range shots. He loves trying to get that mid-range shot at the elbow. If he can face up, get that, he's looking to take it. And it's been pretty good for him so far this season. He's able to impact the game in so many different ways outside of just dunking the ball. But I mean, you did see it a couple times tonight where you're just like, hey, I wish you could have dunked it in this situation to avoid a block shot or anything like that. But to your point about this not being an impressive win, that's definitely a word I didn't use. Where I'm like, feels a little close. Like I was watching the game and I had a headache going into it. And I was like, they're going to make this worse, aren't they? Like they're going to make this headache turn into a migraine. But luckily, we started getting some really fun play from Giannis and Dame, seeing their chemistry improving because, I mean, that's been a major talking point about this Milwaukee Bucks team since the trade was made. It's about that two-man game with Giannis and with Dame and how they look. How's it going to develop? And it's taken some time for it to come together. So to see it in that Lakers loss, which again, you wish it didn't end in a loss, but you saw it developing. And then to see it again tonight against the Clippers, like it was super encouraging to me. And I loved hearing Dame in the post-game interview on the court. And he said something along the lines like, in regards to the two-man game with him and Giannis, just like, I'm getting a better idea of how to use him in reference to Giannis to get my space and for him to use it and for me to use it and to put the defense at our mercy. And they've talked in the post-game conferences, him, Doc, Giannis, all talked about different ways of how Doc is helping to improve the chemistry between the two of them. So I do want to talk a little bit more about the Dame, Giannis pairing and their chemistry when we come back after this break. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? You ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a line of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and city escapes. It's class exclusive Google built-in, always has updating assistant to call on almost anything. So gone are the days of connecting your phone with Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store being built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, which has room for up to 8 people. It also has an expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. We appreciate you for tuning in to Locked On Bucks. Time is valuable. You can't get that back. So for you to spend that time with us, truly appreciate that. Shout out to all the everydayers who listen Monday through Friday and those who be in the YouTube comments, dropping their thoughts, interacting with each other. I love that community that's being built on the YouTube side as well. So with everything we have going on at Locked On Bucks and the great content that we bring you, got to talk about what else Locked On has going on, which is Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now also available on Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. So make sure you check that out because Locked On Sports Today is going to keep you covered with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So find Locked On Sports Today, which is now available on the free Fire TV channels app as well as on YouTube. Now, Frank, I mentioned the developing chemistry, and you dropped the stat that I noticed in the fourth quarter, which was every bucket was either scored by or assisted by Giannis or Dame. And I noticed it actually started in the third quarter. From the beginning of the third quarter until Dame checked out with like 4 minutes left, same thing. Every bucket was scored by or assisted by Giannis and Dame. And in the fourth quarter, it was the same story, except it was the entire quarter. Tonight, they combined for 69 points, 21 assists against the Lakers. They had 62 points, 24 assists. And the points part, of course, is impressive. It stands out. But I also love seeing how they're able to get their teammates involved off of the actions, the first, second, third actions, and their playmaking stands out. Giannis mentioned in his post-game comments just saying the fact that, in the last 6 minutes or so, the ball's probably going to be in Dame's hand. Like that's what everybody has to be okay with. But we know the ball has energy, and throughout the game, we want to make sure we're looking for our teammates. And they have just been doing so much work. Dame made a joke saying the team used to laugh at practice because Doc would have Giannis and Dame just by themselves spamming two-man actions, like do it again, run it again. Now pass him the ball. Now you shoot. Keep doing it. And you're seeing now that the practice is starting to pay off and their chemistry is really starting to show up on the court in real game situations.
Yeah, and I think, the thing that we kind of made the point of early in the season was, if you thought that the Dame Giannis pick and roll was just going to mean that one of them is, Giannis getting a dunk or Dame getting a three, like that's not, the way that NBA defenses work, right? Like they can
Yep.
do a lot of different things to defend this type of action. And, some of the more extreme, like double teams trapping that you'll see, right? Like we saw Dame, there were a couple times where Dame like lofted the ball like so high that like it kind of like the defense was sort of able to like get back. And I was like, can we throw it a little quicker to Giannis? But this is where I think the upside is that Giannis is not a normal role man. He's not just some, huge like run and jump dunker
Yep.
guy with no passing skill or whatever. And so I think that's again why just the skill stuff is just like the biggest joke because again, what is skill? Well, if you're the best ball handling big man in the history of the sport, which show me a big man who's a better ball handler slash, creator on the move than Giannis. I don't think that guy exists. If you want to tell me, KD is technically KD may be a better ball handling 7-footer, like, okay, fine. You named one guy in the history of the
In the
sport, right?
history.
In the
Yeah.
history of the freaking sport. His ball handling and his passing. And, look, I appreciate that a lot of people, a lot of like the national TV games, people have been saying like, oh, his passing's gotten so much better. I think his passing has gotten better, but like he's always been a good passer.
Yep.
And to like think of his passing and his ability to put it on the floor, draw defenders, and find guys for open shots, like again, compare that to the history of guys his size. Like there's no precedent for somebody doing this, right? And I feel like this is sort of the problem with Jokic being in the league at the same time. Like I think Jokic is the best passing big guy of all time.
Mhm.
Um, but he also has the benefit of the fact that he's never moving. Like he's a stationary passer. He's kind of the opposite of Giannis. Jokic is brilliant at just standing there, finding guys cutting on the move, whereas Giannis's game is really about bending the defense with his ball handling, his creation, driving into the teeth of the defense, and then kicking out to guys who oftentimes are not moving. Although I think as we've seen a lot, I mean, his interior passing is also, I mean, to me, maybe his interior passing is the thing that's like taken the biggest leap over the past few years. I mean, just, you know, Jay Crowder had like 2 straight beautiful passes. One of them he flubbed. The second he finished in the first half today. Bobby Portis has just been, making a living finishing Giannis nice little dump off passes when teams show
Mhm.
Giannis extra attention. So yeah, I mean, to me, this was a Giannis skill game. And again, like somehow like skill just became all about mid-range jumpers. I don't know why that's a thing, but like for some reason, if you don't shoot or are really good at mid-range jumpers, or just jump shooting in general, then like somehow like your skill card gets, taken away. And again, for Giannis, I think it just, really, it's not even that it discredits him. It's just like it's just completely like asinine that like
Mhm.
people don't appreciate the skill in what he needs to do to attack, you know, off the bounce, to make plays and et cetera. And obviously in a game like this where, he wasn't able to just go up. I mean, he had 2 alley oops that like he kind of like barely
Layup
finished.
alley-oops.
Yeah, exactly. One of them he got fouled on, but it literally felt like he was playing kind of below the rim tonight. And so I think this is one of those games where obviously, yes, his physical tools are still tremendous, his length, his ability to extend, et cetera. But the skill is so interwoven with his physical tools that I think again it just gets obscured. And it just kills me that, when he makes plays that are really skill based, that people will still just, and then they're not trying to like be insulting, but like commentators, on national games will just talk about it as a physical tool. It's like, oh, his length. It's like, yeah, like creating layups for yourself. Like, I mean, he laps the field every year in, unassisted dunks because he's
Mhm.
an awesome ball handler and he's so skilled at getting to his spot. So we're preaching to the choir here, but Camille, as we like to do, sometimes we got to take a step back and you just appreciate the greatness that Giannis brings to the court every night. And again, I don't know if people will ever appreciate it to the extent they should. Maybe as he gets older and people realize that he's still going to be an elite player, even without, necessarily like his peak athleticism. But hopefully, this is just sort of a period, which we've seen in past years too. Like he'll go through these phases where he just feels like he doesn't have his normal kind of athleticism. We've seen his right knee on the injury report.
Mhm.
That's the chronic knee injury. He had surgery on the left knee, so we really haven't seen that on the injury report at all this year. But between the Achilles and the right knee, and he has randomly shown up with back stuff. I don't know. So there's just been a whole lot going on with Giannis, and I get it. Like, I think there's like this sort of thing where Bucks fans, like everybody's so wary of Giannis's health that everybody's just like, oh, he shouldn't be playing tonight, or like sit him for a week, or like, like it's almost like this like race to who can show that they're willing to be the most conservative with Giannis's playing time, which I totally appreciate kind of that. But on some level, you have to trust the medical staff and Giannis himself to know what he can and can't do. And I have no idea. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I understand what Giannis physically was feeling like today. Maybe it's just because it was an early game or something, and he didn't have
Right.
like his usual energy that way. I don't know, right? I don't know exactly what kind of dictates when he looks like his usual incredible self versus sometimes like this where maybe it feels like he's not at 100% best. But bottom line is, fortunately in the NBA, guys are almost never 100% truly in the sense that like us average people would think of it. So um, again, we've got a day off on Monday ahead of the game in Sacramento on Tuesday, then a day off before coming back for Philly, and then a couple days off before the next game on Sunday. So again, like I think hopefully he can, I don't know, between games get a little bit of rest. But it's not like they had the All-Star break not that long ago, right? So
Right.
it's not like they've been playing for 4 straight months and he hasn't had any off days. So again, we'll see. Fingers crossed that it's just kind of one of those things. But again, I think you just got to give him a ton of credit for being able to just power through this and just continue to play at this extremely high level, even when he doesn't look like he's absolute at his physical best.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when having a Damian Lillard on your team does help you out a little bit because you can trust in him, you can have the ball in his hand, and you can look at him lead the way, which he did in this game as well, alongside Giannis. One thing that stood out to me that was really interesting at halftime, Bobby Portis led the team in shot attempts. He had 12 shots at halftime. Meanwhile, at half, Giannis had 11. Dame had 6. Dame started the game off really hot, 4 from 3, missed his next 2. And then that was it for him in the first half. But like I mentioned earlier with Dame and Giannis talking about the team chemistry and understanding their roles, when the game finished, though, Giannis and Dame led the team in shot attempts. In the second half, both of them got 13 shots up. They were really doing their thing and leading the way. But do want to shout out some key contributions from some of the other guys on the team who made timely plays, good defensive stops, and helped the Bucks pull out this victory. And we'll talk about some of those guys after this break. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has all the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. No wonder why that is. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Free. There's not too many things in life that are free, but posting your job on LinkedIn is. Terms and conditions do apply. A shout out to the role players on the Bucks team here. Like, for example, Pat Connaughton, we've mentioned it, Frank. He's caught a lot of flack this season, and Doc has been very vocal about his belief in him. And Pat Connaughton's been playing well on both sides of the ball now tonight in this game against the Clippers. He was only 1 of 5 from the field, I believe, 2 of 2 free throws, very timely free throws, which comes again to making impact on the court while he's in the game. In the fourth quarter at the end, when the Bucks were trying to salt the game away, Giannis gets fouled, misses the free throw. The Clippers think they're going to have a quick outlet to try to cut the lead down even more. Yet there's Pat Connaughton, already leaked back, gets the steal, and his free throws pretty much ice out the game. You can look at Malik Beasley, someone who we've talked about. I mean, and I got to eat some crow on that one because from the beginning of the season when we heard Adrian Griffin, his time as head coach saying like, hey, we're going to give Malik Beasley the toughest defensive assignments. And I'm like, why would you do that? We just watched him get benched last year in the playoffs because of his defense, and the shot like just abandoned him. But you see it today. And listening to Doc talk, he's like, Bees had a much better defensive game against the Clippers today in LA than he did in Milwaukee last week. He also hit timely threes, and the Bucks are going to need him to be kind of like that 3-and-D guy. At the very least on defense, I'm not expecting Malik Beasley to be Drew Holiday, but just keep your man in front, hustle. Don't take too many risks to put you out of position and just play some solid ball. So like shout out to B, shout out to PC. Pat Bev came with some good defensive energy. And we even saw Danilo Gallinari hit his first 3 as a Buck. 0-8 before that. But I do have not to be, Debbie Downer, but I mentioned it after that last game against the Hornets. But that Pat Bev, Pat Connaughton, Danilo Gallinari, Giannis, Bobby Portis lineup, still not really showing many fruits of their labor. But hey, we got a Gallo 3 tonight. And again, we did see some key contributions from other guys on the Bucks team.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't even need to drag the other guys in so much. It's just like Gallo's just kind of stunk. I mean, he was shooting 24% from the field.
Yeah.
He was 0 for 8 from 3. I mean, if Gallo's not making shots, like, it's over. Like there's no reason to play him. Is he going to hit shots at a high enough rate to justify playing him? I am, needless to say, skeptical.
Seems unlikely.
Chris Middleton, come on back. Like, when Chris comes back, Danilo's the obvious guy that is going to be on the outside looking in. I checked the Gallo, Giannis, Portis kind of triple big lineup coming in this game were minus 20 in 28 minutes, which honestly is like, it's not a big sample size. Like even putting aside the other guys, I mean, minus 20 in that sort of a sample is bad, right? That's how you
Right.
get to some of these numbers like minus 38 net rating or whatever it is. But I'm always wary of using like the net rating stuff when like the sample's like less than a game total, because it just sort of makes it seem like, you know, it's actually like had this huge impact when we're talking about, bleeding a few points here and there most games and whatever. So yeah, I don't really need to. If you told me tomorrow that, AJ Green was going to get all of Gallo's minutes, I'd say thumbs up, down with that.
Right.
I just don't know what he's really doing for you at this point, especially given his defensive limitations. But I don't know. Doc keeps trying to make Gallo happen,
Stop
and
making Fed try to happen.
I know that's exactly the phrase I was thinking of. But I appreciate the fact when he hit that corner three today, he he laughed. I mean, he was like joking on the bench after it. Like I forget what exactly he said, something like "I finally got one" or something like that, because he very much knew that he had not hit a
Right.
three since coming to the Bucks. And again, like he's obviously a guy that has been a bucket getter his entire career, and he's obviously in a different point of that now. So we'll see. If Danilo Gallinari is playing minutes in the playoffs, then that probably means there's injuries that we really don't want to think about happening. So we'll see. But shout out to Gallo for finally breaking the seal on his 3-point account with the Bucks. But yeah, I mean, Pat, we should call it out. I mean, unfortunately, Friday night the Bucks lose. If they win, I think everybody would have been talking about Pat Connaughton's shot
Absolutely.
making, hit, some big shots, including I don't think it was I don't know if was it a go ahead three, or were they up by 1 or 2 points? I don't know if they were going. They hit a corner three
I thought
off
it
of
was a go
Giannis.
ahead in the corner. Yeah.
Yeah, 17 points on 6 of 7 shooting. I don't know. Somebody like I called it out like for Pat for making good. Someone's like, "Oh, his defense," and I was like, I mean, I was watching. I thought he was like handling screens like reasonably well. I mean, it's not like Pat Connaughton was the reason why they couldn't stop D'Angelo Russell or something like that.
Right.
Which is basically what that game came down to. Is D'Angelo Russell was just unconscious. You know, again, there are a few plays where obviously they didn't defend it well, including I think the last play. We can debate whether Dame should have been on the floor, whether Brooks should have been on the floor, much less been the two guys in the final action. It doesn't sound like they executed that the way they wanted to, and Russell makes the shot. So, again, I'm always a little wary of calling out coaches for not playing for not pulling superstars, because like most coaches are very wary of pulling
Right.
superstars in defensive situations, even when they're not good defenders. And I think Dame has been playing better defense of late, but still, I mean, if you're really trying to maximize your final possession, are you going to be better off with Dame Lillard or Pat Beverly playing defense? Think we think we can probably figure that one out pretty easily. So anyway, Friday obviously Pat had a big game. Unfortunately, couldn't get the payoff. But yeah, I mean he's since January 1st, he's got like I don't know if he's still there. I looked up recently, but he was at like 70% true shooting. I mean, he had the best shooting splits on the team. I mean, it's not like this is brand new for Pat, but I think people just got so anchored on some of the early season problems that nobody wanted to give him credit. But yeah, Pat's been fine, and um, I don't know. Like I totally get. I mean, we talked a lot about Andre Jackson and could you get Andre minutes, or Marjon at the
Hmm.
beginning of the season. Um, I think kind of to me, like we're sort of past the point of no return on like trying to
I
get
think
those
so.
guys integrated in what's happening. It would have been great if you could have gotten them more minutes early consistently and tried to kind of get that learning through that learning curve. But look, I mean, Andre has not been a positive player for the vast majority of the season. He's had a few games here and there where, he's really contributed, but someone was also like, "Oh, why don't you get Andre out there to close the game?" It's like, well, he gets called for fouls like, every 2 minutes. Like, like he's got great physical tools, but he's not like an on-ball stopper at this point, right? I think he's probably better as like more of a help guy or a switch guy. So, um, yeah, I mean, for better or worse, as we've said, this is the team, kind of is what it is. Shout out to Bees. I think good to call him out, kind of the strides he's made defensively. And, lo and behold, when the whole team starts playing more cohesively, in a more connected fashion, and the defense gets better, like all of a sudden, you don't have guys getting scapegoated as the reason why you're bad on defense, right? Like
Yeah.
Bill Simmons can't sit around saying that like Dame Lillard's so bad that no team can play defense with him or whatever, which is like never was like really the way that NBA defense works. Like guys can be bad defenders or mediocre defenders, and especially guards. Like you can still have a
Mhm.
good defense, right? But so anyway, uh, defensive rating today, not great, but mainly because of the transition. The transition defense was really bad today, and so that obviously is an area that generally has been much better since Doc had come in. But again, let's just say this: as much as they win this game, they left some things on the tape for the coaching staff to go over. Let's say that.
Yeah, there's definitely still
Offensive,
room for
defensive
improvement.
rebounding too. Defensive rebounding, transition. Two things that were sort of like the easy cleanup stuff. Not so much today, but hey, at least you clawed out the win despite that.
Yeah, and even points allowed in the paint as well. The numbers are starting to creep back up for the Bucks after they came out really strong out of the All-Star break. I believe they were holding teams to about 40 points over the first 6 games coming out of the break in the paint. So seeing what they gave up today to the Clippers as well, you're just kind of like, not enjoying that. Same with the Warriors as well. So some things to clean up along the way, but we are seeing signs of improvement. We were seeing certain signs of progress from this team before the break, but they weren't resulting in wins for them. And now we're starting to see some of those dubs come. Of course, starting the road trip off 0-2, not ideal, especially in a Lakers game where you probably should have won that. And you've heard the team mention, like, we let that one get away from us, but they pull it together. They learn from it. They get a win today against the Clippers, a very timely win, a needed win before they head to Sacramento to wrap up this 4-game road trip. Tuesday's game against the Kings will be the last 9 p.m. start game for the Bucks this season for all of those who like to turn in early. But they will have to play against a Kings team that's going to be motivated. The Kings also played today. They lost to the Rockets by 8 in a game where they were up and halftime. They were looking all right. Then things just changed for them. It will also be the first night of a back-to-back for the Kings. They have the Lakers on Wednesday after they see us. And hey, maybe we'll see Chris Middleton in this game on Tuesday. Not sure. I saw Eric Name report that on Friday, Doc Rivers told reporters that Chris Middleton was going to have another really hard workout on Saturday. And when asked about that follow-up, he said that Chris had a great workout, really good, looked great. So he's getting closer. We've been saying he's getting closer for like a week and a half, 2 weeks now. But Frank, we really might be getting closer. It seems like that return for Chris is coming soon. The Bucks definitely need that.
I think they teased that on the ESPN broadcast on Friday, that Tuesday would probably be the
Mhm.
more likely target, which uh, we'll see, right? I feel like we've been, as you said, we've been kind of hoping for this for a
It's
couple
been
weeks
close for
now.
2 weeks.
Yeah, so it's just a long ass ankle sprain rehab. But I mean, the funny part too is like look, I don't think we can debate at this point that Chris Middleton is injury prone. Like it doesn't matter if they're like different types of injuries.
If
Like
they're
the bottom
freak
line is,
injuries.
yeah, it doesn't matter if they're freak injuries. Like he's been getting injured a lot and he's missed a lot of games. And I get that there's frustration. It is kind of interesting though. I feel like a lot of people, when I've heard people talk about him this year, this is basically the only like injury that has kept him out of games. Like, the knee injury, obviously, to start the year, he was, rehabbing from that, but he was playing, right? He hasn't like
Mhm.
missed games this season because of it. He's obviously not been playing on back to back. So you can say, well, that's due to that. But other than that, I mean, he had a game in November with Achilles soreness, but for the most part, he's pretty much been healthy up until the ankle injury, which again, it's bad luck, but again, like the healing time on an ankle injury, like this has been quite a long one, right? And it looked
Mhm.
like a pretty typical ankle injury, right? It didn't look like, I mean, we know he didn't like break his ankle or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I get the frustration. Last year it was sort of a whole bunch of lots of different things that seemed to keep him from being able to get to where he could be on the floor regularly. Whereas this year, I think it's just really that one single play that has cost him a lot of time. And interestingly, it's now looking like it will have cost him about 1.5 million in
Yeah.
potential
Okay.
bonuses as well. So it's that stuff matters, right? Like I think it was he had to play in 62 games or so to get that, which is now kind of out the window. So obviously, I'm sure Chris would have liked to play games and get an extra $1.5 million. I
Who
know I would,
wouldn't?
Camille. So it is what it is. And, again, fingers crossed, maybe it's Tuesday that he comes back, and I think we'll see kind of how long his ramp up is. And just for the record, I almost like hesitate to, acknowledge this because I just don't think it's really much of a discussion. Like some people have been talking about like, oh, well, do you maybe Chris's best role is six man. We heard the same stuff last year when he actually was
Mhm.
playing six man. I mean, like Jay Crowder hit a three today, which is great. He's been shooting 25% from three each of the last 2 months. I appreciate Jay's physicality on defense is useful. I think you're going to need him, especially against like the Celtics in the playoffs and things like
Right.
that. But in what world do we need to like? Do you want to play Jay Crowder more and Chris Middleton less? Which is effectively what you're going to be doing if you start someone other than Chris Middleton with your starting group. Like Chris is a perfect fit. Yes, maybe he doesn't touch the ball as much with that starting group, but the offense has not been as good since he's been out. I don't think that's a coincidence. And especially in the playoffs, it's not like you're trying to spread guys out over like 32 minutes a game. Like you're expecting to ramp guys up and play them a lot of minutes. So, the idea that you're going to have like, Chris playing with a bench unit for like 6 or 7 minutes, like that's not going to happen in the playoffs. Like Dame, Giannis, Chris, they're all going to have to play a ton. And so play your best dudes. It's not like you're talking about, playing Chris in a lineup where like he's out of position or something like that. Like he's the small forward, and I don't even know if Jay Crowder is a small forward. To me, he's still more of a small ball forward. So this seems like pretty easy, basic logic. The Bucks have been awesome all year when they play their best players. So again, in case anyone was trying to think along these lines, just keep it simple, guys. Play your best five players. It's been great that the team has been good with the starting five with Jay Crowder. They've been over a plus 20 net rating with him in there. But to me, that ain't because of Jay Crowder. Because of Jay
Right.
Crowder. That's because of the other dudes. And they've got an awesome. I think they have an even better net rating with Pat Connaughton as a starting small forward or as a small forward in that lineup with the rest of the starters. I don't think anybody's clamoring for Pat Connaughton to take Chris Middleton's starting job. So again, I think that's just a statement more about how good Giannis, Dame, and Brooke are and Beasley too. He's fit in
Mhm.
well as well. So the good news is the Bucks top lineups have all defended really well. They've all been very majorly positive. Um, but again, like let's not overthink it.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't overthink it. That is a key going forward here. But we'll be back with more Locked On Bucks for you tomorrow. For Frank and myself, we appreciate you for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.